welcome back to my channel. As promised, in today's video I'm going to be reading out to you the second diagnostic report, because I have two reports. The second one is like the more official diagnostic report that follows on from the one I read last week. Because as I told you in last week's video, I requested that I be seen by the full multidisciplinary team, even although the person who originally diagnosed me said that wasn't necessary because he was qualified to give me the diagnosis on his own. I wanted to see everyone. Normally people are only referred to the multidisciplinary team in my area who are like, I think, a bit more like complex, or where they're not quite sure. But in my case, it was because I wanted to be seen by the multidisciplinary team, because the person who diagnosed me, was completely, he was, completely sure that I was autistic. So I didn't need to be seen by the multidisciplinary team. But I wanted to be seen just because I'm the type of person that doesn't like to do things by halves. I'm never convinced of something until I have the absolute full verification. And although I knew, that I was autistic, and I mean, even before I was seen, I thought it was very likely, but I'm someone who likes everything to be done thoroughly and properly, just to kind of like 100% convince me of it. And it's funny because even though now I've been diagnosed, and that for a long time afterwards I had doubt about it, like I would still be going over in my head, even though on the one hand, while I knew I was, on the other hand there was still like this niggling doubt, thinking like, because obviously there's no like blood test for autism, there's no biological way of knowing. It's based upon a kind of developmental pattern and behaviours. It's obviously both a subjective experience, but also like the behaviours that are observed and the patterns in development that other people observe growing up and stuff. And diagnosis is all about the individual and their family kind of like reviewing their present situation and the past through kind of like recollection and other kind of like evidence that comes out of the past and stuff. And because I'm a type of person who likes everything to be like really kind of like clear and very kind of concrete, I guess, when something carries some kind of like vagueness, like when it's like, I wish there was a brain scan, because I really would love to see my brain and actually see it like physically, but currently that isn't actually possible apart from like research and stuff. But I don't do it for like diagnosis and stuff. It'd be great if I could, because I'm the type of person who would really like to see it like actually physically. Obviously, and since getting diagnosed, I've had to go through this very long process. I mean, God, we're talking like over 10 years ago now, of kind of in a sense kind of growing into the diagnosis, which means that I've had to kind of really kind of feel at peace with the diagnosis, because for a while, and actually still is the case, but less so now, because particularly as I've had to kind of like educate myself in what it means to be autistic and things like that. And I think also at the time I was quite kind of taken in by the stereotypes and stuff. So often I would be like seeing types of autism or representations of autism that that were kind of like a bit different to the way I experienced autism. And then that would make me kind of like doubt the diagnosis. But then on the other hand, on the other side, I've had my own perceptions kind of challenged a lot, because I did have a certain idea of what autism was, and then when you see other people who don't kind of like appear like the type of autism I had read about in books, parts of which did resonate with me, like for example parts like to do with not being able to make friends and not being in a relationship and not really being capable of that. And then of course I come across autistics who do have those things, and I'm like getting confronted with this type of autism that isn't how I thought autism was, and then that leads to a kind of like conflict, and then I start to feel, I don't want to go into this now, but then that makes it kind of me feel kind of I don't know, there must be something else going on other than autism. It means I can't do those things, and that makes me experience even more conflict. Even though I know, and I sort of know on one hand that obviously autism affects everyone in different ways, and obviously there are different types of autism. But again, you go through this cycle of doubt where you start to think, well, if I can have friendships and relationships, and I thought that people with autism can't, and when I first understood that people with autism can't, then that kind of made peace of my own experience, because I can't do these things, now here are these people who do this. Again, I did go through this sort of cycle of, I don't know, kind of like defence reactions as well. I'm just being totally honest here about my experience of it. Where then I kind of sort of, I don't know, and then it can make you quite angry as well. I start to get quite angry sometimes when I come across these people, because I'm kind of like feeling, I don't know, extra marginalised, which I know is like all just me. I mean, it's my problem. Okay, it is my problem, and I know I've got a problem with that. But I'm just wondering if any of you can relate to that. And then I've obviously had to like re-educate myself as to what autism is, because and if me, like an autistic person myself, has kind of like taken on board these stereotypes, you can see how easy it is for non-autistics to believe these things. You have to understand that autism isn't one thing, and that's still something that I'm trying to understand, and I think also because I do struggle with understanding other people's perspectives. I mean, that's kind of part of what autism is, isn't it, as well? Like, I admit I do not have great perspective taking skills. I know that, and there's not really much I can do about it, though. I can know that and I can say it to camera, but knowing it and doing something about it is two different things, because I know I have problems with perspective, but I can't really do anything about that because I have problems with perspective. So if I see another autistic person who has a family, who has a job, and all of those things, I'm like thinking, how can they be autistic? Because I can't do those things. And then it's really hard for me to understand that they have the same condition as me, even though I know logically they do. I can kind of understand, I can kind of force myself to try and grasp it logically, but it doesn't really filter through into, it still results in this kind of anger, if that makes sense. About how can I do it and I can't. Because like I said, I'd read a lot about my initial reading on autism and my initial understanding of autism, and also of course what my parents had said to me, because I think my mum has held some quite stereotypical views about autism as well, and I obviously then internalised those views, and obviously that wasn't her fault or anything, because she didn't know much about autism, and I think a little knowledge can sometimes be kind of a little bit dangerous because people base that knowledge on stereotypes. And I think my mum's understanding of autism was essentially that autism means you just can't have relationships, or that you can't really. I think she took the old view that that's what autism was, and because I do fit that kind of old view of autism in some respects, like I really do struggle with relationships. I genuinely really have this blockage in terms of relationships and friendships, my social ability in that regard. I'm very egocentric. I'm not beating around the bush here, I'm saying it as it is. I do lack not lack empathy, that's probably a bit extreme. I don't lack empathy 100%, but I do really struggle with empathy. And I think because that's how my mum saw autism in me, and also because that then tallied with her general understanding of autism, she also fed the idea that people who do have empathy and that have relationships aren't like properly autistic. And I think then I took on that on board, and then when I saw like people with these things, and I was like thinking, but these people are like that. And I thought my mum said this. I think also because I am quite literal, and I think and if someone says something, I tend to like believe it. And then when that's like confronted with, say, other people not being how I thought autism was, it can kind of make me feel quite kind of like threatened, because it's conflicting with what my mum told me or what I thought autism was based upon how I experienced it as well. But again, conversely, it's also reassuring at the same time, because then I kind of like think, well, if these people are like so normal in inverted commas and are autistic, then just because I can appear normal, that also means that I'm autistic, because I used to have these doubts when I saw like these really stereotypical cases on TV, often the ones who couldn't speak much or like were really obvious, made me feel like I couldn't be autistic. But again, when I see like ultra normal, I used to get. And by the way, some of what I'm saying, I hope it's not offensive. I'm just being really, really honest. I don't want to offend anyone. These are just my thoughts, because as an autistic person, kind of trying to kind of like grow into the diagnosis, as it were. and like accept myself as an actual autistic person and try to accept others as autistic as well. And that's really difficult when they don't share the same type of autism as me. It's an ongoing thing, and I admit I do have a problem with it, and I don't like having this problem, and it's something I'm trying to resolve, but it's really difficult. So yeah, when I see other people with autism who don't reflect the type of autism I have, that made me doubt my autism. But again, when I see people who are like ultra normal, and I normal in inverted commas, like saying having relationships and appearing just like any non-autistic person, that can be reassuring because it means it validates my own autism when I can appear quite normal. But again, at the same time, because I haven't achieved those kind of outward things like I've achieved, like say family and relationships and things like that, it can then like be threatening because then I feel, am I doing something wrong? Again, it threatens like my perceptions of autism based upon my reading, based upon what my mum told me, and based upon my own type of autism in terms of not being able to have relationships. Again, makes me think, am I doing something wrong? Because this is what I thought autism was. Again, these people are showing that you can be autistic and do these things. Again, am I doing something wrong because I can't do this? Is it more than the autism? Blah blah blah. And then I have to again it makes me beat myself up, and then I start to think, and I start to go back in on myself and think, oh my god, this is something wrong with my personality. Blah 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 blah. When obviously I kind of know that it's not, because obviously I do have real genuine problems. Like I am very egocentric. I do struggle with empathy. I do genuinely really find it hard to make relationships, and I think so. I know that my type of autism is like that. But it's really hard for me to understand that how someone else can also be autistic and yet have it so differently to me. But I think that might also be part of the autism, maybe, that I just can't do the perspective taking thing. So I think that might be part of the reason why I find it so difficult to understand how they can be autistic. Because it's almost like I want other people to be like me. But, well, I know that's not possible, but logically, I know that's not possible. And yet, emotionally, because I am still basically like a child in terms of my emotions, I find it really hard to understand how other people can be different to me. But let me know what you think. Anyway, I'm going to be moving on to video number 2 now. So I've just gone off another one. I wasn't even intending to talk about this in this video. This is just what happened. But I'm going to go on to video number 2 now because I really want to read to you my report, and I might not be able to read all of it, but we'll see how we get on. So moving on to video number 2 now.